We're back with the biggest gangster in Glasgow. Who would have thought today, me called a gangster? I'm an absolute gangster. Serious note, but I find it hilarious, right? And for those of you that are maybe not too fresh to it, right? So basically, long story short, there's a guy called Terry Stone. He played Tony Tucker in Rise of the Foot Soldier, right? I went on his podcast a year and a half ago, last January, I think, January 2024. We're now into nearly August 2025. And I went on his podcast. It wasn't the best podcast, right? And he decided to release it last week. I just assumed that he wasn't going to release it. It was quite a shite conversation. If I'm being honest, the kind of conversations I've had, no the best. And I'll just give you a wee kind of backstory into it, right? So, I was on a show called Banged Up, and off the back of Banged Up, there was a few podcast appearances happening for people, and I saw Terry Stone was doing a podcast, and I think it was Shet Sandu that was on it, so I messaged him, like, alright mate, I've just done Banged Up, I've got a decent following up in Scotland, how do you feel about getting like your first Scottish guest type thing? So he's like, aye, come down. Let's give you a couple of dates, we can work out a date. So we worked out a date, right, and I headed down to London to do this podcast. I thought, go down to London, get a wee day trip away, go on a podcast, meet Terry Stone, because I loved Rise of the Foot Soldier when I was young. It was quite popular in Glasgow. So I was rubbing my hands, I was like, nice wee, get a wee trip away. Obviously I funded it all, there was no lecture, I wasn't expecting him to fund anything for me. But I paid, I got a train down, stayed in an Airbnb all night, then went and met him the next day. And when I went to meet him in this it was like an office block in London. They've obviously got this podcast studio space in there, and he was already in doing a podcast with somebody. And say, for instance, I was to be there for like 3 o'clock. It was kind of running by 3 o'clock and running on and on and on. And they eventually finished and came out, and it was a guy, Abdul Bangora. He was on Banged Up as well. Great guy. He sells like aviation parts and stuff like that. Really nice guy. We said, how you doing, this and that, just got a wee brief chat, and then I went in. Terry Stone's like, right, I've only got like an hour and a half for this one. So I was like, alright, right, we've got a time limit on it already. So we just went in and we just had a wee chat type thing. I kind of spoke about myself and asked him about himself, because as you know, watching the format of my conversations, I like to have a conversation. So that's just the way it is. I just enjoy chatting. So obviously I kind of asked him some questions about himself, and he spoke about himself. And I didn't really get a chance to kind of tell much of my story. Obviously you've got the kind of blood and gut stuff when I went to prison when I was 17, because it is a big part of my story, right? And he did ask, and we go into it, and at that time, and it wasn't the first time I'd done it, I kind of maybe overindulged a bit too much in the graphic description, right? And for me, I've never been about trying to brag about being in jail. It's never been my thing. I've never felt boastful about hurting people or doing damage to people. I've only really been honest. And at that point in time, I was kind of sharing, right, the detail of the guy's injuries as such. And there was a few other things I was talking, right, just the way I was presenting myself, right? Because Terry Stone, he's got a bit of a name, and it was a new audience, it was an English audience, it felt like a good opportunity. So there was a part of me that was probably trying too hard to be liked, right? And up at that point in time, that's probably what I was doing on what most kind of platforms. Like when I get a bit of exposure, you're almost playing a caricature of yourself. So, as I say, the podcast, it wasn't great. We finished it, got a chat for it. It was a decent enough chat, but it wasn't a great presentation of myself. I'll be honest with you, I don't listen to podcasts back that I do. Upon it getting posted recently, I tried to listen back to it. I just can't. It's like listening to an old version of myself. You know what I mean? Like, imagine listening to like an old conversation you had a year and a half ago. It's going to sound completely different. So since that podcast, I've got in a relationship. I've applied myself to recovery. I've done ayahuasca. The thing is, that podcast, for me, it disappeared into the ether. I remember at one point messaged Terry, I was like, when's that podcast coming out? He's like, oh, it's going to be in the next season or something like that. I was like, all right, fair dues. It then got to a point I was like, he's not releasing this podcast because it was a Snyder. In my opinion, it was a crap chat. And then eventually he tried to get in touch with us the other week. And he says, that podcast is coming out. I'll send you some news and some of the media for it and that. And I was kind of like in my head, right, it's kind of pointless releasing it now. Like, my life has totally changed. But I had a full-time job when I done that podcast. Like, I've worked for myself for the past year. I give you a bit of context. If you've been following my journey or following the stuff I do, remember the Kaz Milligan TikTok boxing event I fought Jasper on? This podcast happened before that. That's how long ago it was, right? So, I remember thinking that and I was like, you know what? Maybe this is when it's meant to come out. So I was like, right, it's coming out, fair dues, I'll share it, I'll tell people to go and watch it. And then he made the thumbnail, it said Glasgow Gangster. And I kind of had a chuckle at it, right? And I thought, see, the thing is, right, for those of you that are probably not involved in content creation, right, you'll probably see it when I do my captions. You'll try and write a caption in a certain format where it's eye-catching. It'll gravitate towards people clicking on it and watching it. The Glasgow Gangster thing, I just took that as the podcast wasn't the greatest conversation, so that's his attempt to get people to watch it. It ties in with the theme of his channel. Whatever. I found it funny. People didn't really see it that way. There's people messaging me, good friends of mine, and they were raging. And not with me, just with the fact that the way he was kind of trying to portray us, it was kind of selling a lie. Essentially, because I've never portrayed myself as a gangster. I've never claimed to come from that sort of life. Have I done a bit of skullduggery in my time? Aye. But where I come from, mate, who hasn't it? So, at no point did I portray to Terry Stone, this was my lifestyle. I didn't sell him a fib. I was quite honest and straightforward with him. And that's what he's made into a title. If you watch the podcast, you wouldn't listen to that and go, a gangster. You would never think that. Nobody would ever come to that conclusion, right? I didn't bother about it at first. Then I had some people... there was a reel, right? So it was a trailer made up of the podcast. And if you see any kind of trailers for podcast ideas to kind of mash up the best bits and all that, and when you go on these crime podcasts, what they do is they try and get the most shocking bits. And I've done it myself, right? Where you try and get the bits that will get people's attention, it will get people watching the podcast. So, I'll be honest, I hadn't watched the clip. He sent me a clip and I just posted it. And then I had a good friend of mine whose opinion I value, let's just say. He messaged me, he's like, I was kind of surprised to hear you talking about knife crime like that, mate. And I'm no surprised. I thought, how was it he worded it? Just saying, I thought people would go after you after saying that. And I was kind of a bit taken aback. I was like, what's he talking about? So I watched the clip, and of course it's talking about the graphic detail of my crime and that. Of course, accountability is mine. I said the words. And I was like, wow, man, I don't really... It was kind of a contrast to the kind of stuff I've been talking about as of late. Like, I'm going the telly talking about the prison problems, I'm talking about knife crime, youth violence, all these types of things, and I'm kind of trying to send a positive message these days. So it wasn't really in line with the kind of message I'm putting out there. So I woke up the day after it got released and it was kind of sitting on my mind, and I was like, you know what, this doesn't really align with the kind of message I'm trying to put out there. So the theme that I'm trying to champion. So I messaged Terry and I kind of explained it. There's the screenshot there of what I said. I kind of just said how I felt, you know what I mean? And I wasn't really accusing him of any wrongdoing as such. I was accountable for my part, but I was also kind of right, it was recorded a year and a half ago. I could understand if I recorded it a few weeks ago or a month or two ago, where I'm still, it's like, right, wait a minute, mate, we've just put all this work into it, but it sat in the back burner for a year and a half, so it clearly was not of the utmost importance to get posted immediately. I'll be honest with you, I think the only reason he's posted it because he never had a podcast that week. He's just sat on it. I get it. So he get back to us and he was saying, no, the people found it entertaining, this and that. And he says the trailer, it's like the idea, it's kind of to get people engaged. And that was no his exact wording, but that was the gist of it. So you know what, right, I'll go and listen to the podcast, because maybe it's just I'm basing it off this trailer. So I went and started listening to the podcast, and just for the offset, man, I could hear it in my voice. I was trying too hard to be liked. I was talking in a manner I don't really talk these days. I'm a bit more conscious of what's coming out of my mouth. I think I managed about half an hour of it, and I kind of had an idea. I had a bit of feedback for other people on certain things that I'd said, and I was like, all right, fair dues. And I sat in it a bit longer, and I messaged her again, and I was like, look, mate, there's a screenshot there, right? My feelings hadn't really changed in regards to the podcast, but I was like, listen, I get it. If you want to keep it up, it's your channel, it's your podcast, essentially. I'm not here to sit and tell you to get that done, this or that, but could you at least change the title? That's the one thing. And it wasn't a big ask, because I had never tried to portray that. I'd never told him I was a gangster. You know what I mean? There was no, you're extracting that, you're clutching at straws if you're extracting that from my story, right? It wasn't a big deal. And listen, as I say, I get it. The caption is trying to drag people into the podcast. I've done it with people. I've maybe wrote a caption where somebody's like that. One of my previous podcasts, not too long ago, the guy messaged me like that, mate, going to change that title, and explained his reasons why. Immediately I changed it. I says, look, this is what I'm trying to do with this, but I get it. I'll happily change it. So it wasn't a big ask. It wasn't a tall order, in my opinion. I messaged Terry. He never replied. And I'm like, maybe he's just busy. I get it. I sometimes don't reply to messages. Sent him a follow-up message. You see my message, mate? He never replied. So he's obviously clearly not going to change it. Fair dues. I can't make him change it. I can only just kind of share where I'm at now and the position with the podcast. And listen, they are my words. Not the gangster thing, but everything else in the podcast, the content of the podcast is my words. But what I would just say is that was me at a different time. A lot has changed in the past year and a half. I can't help that that's it. He took a year and a half to release it. Why? Only he can answer that. I can surmise to a certain degree. But the thing is, I heard from a pal of mine that Terry Stone was on TikTok Live when he first started doing TikToks, and he commented, oh, when's the Y50's podcast coming out? And he's like, who's that? And he's like, Big Jordan Robertson. He's like, I don't know who that is. So it's, to some of these people, right, that do these podcasts, you're just indispensable to them. They're only caring about their views and what they can get. They don't really care about the person in front of them, which is fair enough. I'm Scottish, he's English. I'm not saying that's the same for all Scottish and English people, but at the end of the day, I did take time. I spent money to travel down there and do that podcast. If you don't think that podcast is of a quality that's in alignment with your channel, that's fine. But don't release it at all then. I would rather he didn't release it. And he did suggest about going back down and doing it, but look, he sat in the podcast for a year and a half. I'm not going to go all the way back down there to do another one for the same thing to happen. And it's really, these podcasts, right, there's a few of them, you've probably watched them, that are kind of like that. They just want, they're not really asked about what kind of trouble you get yourself in, as long as you kind of get in the juice. I've sat here, some people have told some mad stories, and it's good clickbait. Some people have told me stuff in a podcast, and then they've been like, mate, you need to take that out. Like, incriminating stuff. And I've happily taken it out. And I'm not saying if I says to Terry, like, previously, or if I take that out, it would not have took it out or no. I don't know. As I say, as far as I was concerned, the podcast was binned. You know what I mean? But, the person the other day is a far cry for the person I was a year and a half ago. Because as I say, I cringe at my words, what I'm saying in that podcast. I couldn't even listen to it. And I suppose that's growth. And the thing is, I'm going to send the right message to the youth. So if I'm talking about knife crime, knife violence, gang violence and all that stuff, and then I'm talking about slashing a guy, it's no alignment. I feel it's sending out a mixed message. And I tried to kind of explain that to Terry. Maybe I could have explained it better, but how well do I need to explain it? You know what I mean? As I say, I'm accountable for what I say in the podcast, but I'm not accountable for the caption he's put on it. You know what I'm talking about? It's nothing I would ever call myself in a serious tone. Maybe in a joking manner, aye. But it is what it is. And the see the thing is with these podcasts, right? Not just this podcast, any podcast. I've told my story. I've been in enough to take me back to the start. So I've been in jail, this and that. I've done it. If you want to find my story, you can find it. I want to write a new story. I want to add some chapters to this book. So I've made a conscious decision, and I'll be honest, the situation with that podcast, it just kind of, it solidified it for me. I was like, right, I'm not going to go on any more podcasts just now. I've got a bit more life I want to live. I'm sick of telling the same story. Where I want to kind of start crafting some new experiences. And with the likes of that podcast, and of course I done Sean Atwood's podcast, where I feel I maybe overshared a bit. I gave a bit too much detail. And the person I was back then, I was trying to give these people what I thought they wanted, what their audience wanted. But the thing is, looking back, it wasn't a true reflection of the person I really am. And coming for the scheme, right, you learn to put on a face, a mask, especially if you go into jail and all. It's a human thing. The person you're in your house and the person you're outside are usually two different people. You're having a bad day, you usually put on a front. Survival in it, man. So we learn to kind of display this hardened exterior to an extent. And for me, I'll be honest, I've kind of tried to capitalise on it to a certain degree. But looking at that and where I'm at now, it's not really worked out for the best, essentially. But it is what it is. Listen, I'm accountable for what I say. And what I will say is, right, get into detail about specifics of my crime, injuries sustained and all that type of thing. I've never done that in a sense where to glorify it or take pride in it, because I don't. I'm a bit kind of ashamed about it, rightfully so. It was just a kind of a recollection of my experience, my memory. I remember this. For this is what happened, these are the details, but like the world doesn't need to be privy to the exact details in my case. You know what I mean? I just need to give an oversight for you to kind of understand the context of it. But listen, it is what it is. I just wanted to kind of make this video and kind of touch base on that and just kind of say my piece. So I wanted to address it, and there was a wee voice in my head that was saying, like, within a week people forget this. You know what I mean? It will be gone, dead and buried within a week, especially on social media. But still, I just feel as if I've done a lot of work to get to where I'm at now. As I say, I get back to this message. I've worked quite hard to kind of put this out. My life has gone in a different direction from where it was previously, in a better direction. I like to think I'm using my past experience in a positive note. Can I change the people that get hurt? No, I can't. But what I can do is use the experience to try and steer other people off the path. And the thing is, right, and I've had people and they've commented on this channel, they've commented on my social media as such, are you talking about the jail again? And most of the times they're commenting videos when I'm not even talking about the jail, because the theme in my content has been talking about my prison experiences recently. You get these mad bampots, right, that comment as if that's all I talk about. And anybody that knows me, I'm not one of these people that go, well, it's 12:30 and I've been in the jail. You know what I mean? That's just not the type of person I'm. But the thing is, this is the options I've got, right? I could either just never speak about it again, right? Shut the door on it. Or I could use my experiences and my knowledge of it to try and steer people away from living that sort of life. See if I was to just shut up and stop talking about it now because some nugget that I'll never see in person. If I did, they would have the balls to say it into my face. Did I just stop talking about it for their sake? That would be quite selfish. That would be like, for me, that would be self-preservation. I'm going to stop talking about this because other people's opinions might affect me. And that'd be a true weakling. Whereas, if I'm using my experience, my knowledge, my know-how, and saying to people, listen, you don't want to go down this road, because nobody really done that with me. Like, close family members, I won't say who exactly, I knew they'd been in jail, but they would never talk about it. Just say, just don't want to go to jail, don't go to jail. I'm like, why? Because in my head, if you went to jail when I was younger, it was like, so like you went to university. That was kind of what it was like. That's how sad it was. You thought it made you a bit of a hard man. It was like a stripe on your shoulder. And it wasn't. But I didn't find out until I found out the hard way. And I've spent a significant period of my life in jail. You know what I mean? I've done nearly 5 years in the jail. It's not anything I'm proud of. Did it benefit me? No, really. I could have benefited more from outside. Did I take some experiences I had in the jail system and turn them into a positive? Aye, but that's not the case for everybody. I could have went pear-shaped, even more than I already did. Thing is, if I can use that experience and say to somebody, especially young people that have not really got that guidance, they've not got somebody saying to them, listen man, this is where this is gone, and this is what is here when you get there, if you get there, but you don't need to go there. I always say that the biggest role models in my scheme were the person that stabbed the most people and the person that sold the most drugs. And in most places it'd be the same person. That was it. Do you think, right, I need to sell an exorbitant amount of drugs in order to achieve anything in my life? Other than that, I'm in the gutter. And that is not the case. And that's why I think social media plays a good part. And don't get me wrong, when you go back to these people doing these podcasts and glamorising this life of crime, and tell you the truth, half of them are probably whoppering, right? It sends a wrong message. Because what are you using your experience, your story today, cause people to follow suit? Where did it get you? Nowhere. Nowhere positive. Because see, the people that live these types of lives, right? It's not a life worth living. You see the material stuff. Recently, right? I've had some good money when I've been able to buy all the material possessions I want, right? I wouldn't say I'm the most materialistic person, but when it comes to like camera equipment and such, I'm like, I want that. When I've got money, I'll get that. And listen, I implemented certain disciplines in order to get it. So I kind of worked towards it and I managed to get it. And see, when I got it was before I even had the thing delivered to my house, I was like, what's the next thing I can get? So a chase, having that thing, like a gimbal. It's there. It's like 800 quid I paid for it. I'm still trying to figure out how to use the thing. I'm even on jobs, filming like that. Was this even worth it? And I'll get to grips with how to use it. That'll take time. What I've realised, right, here's a bit of wisdom for you. Every expense has a consequence. And I'll explain that, right? So, I drive a Vauxhall Corsa. Some people think I'm going to turn up in this big top-of-the-line Mercedes. Could I afford it? Probably. Would it leave me a bit more skint than new? Aye. Right? I'm no made of money and I don't care. Thing is, my Vauxhall Corsa, right, I've got it in finance. I pay 109 quid a month for it, right? My insurance, I've managed to get down to 90 quid. To top it up, say about 25 quid a week fuel. So all in all, I run a motor for 300 quid a month, right? That is pennies, right? Compared to what you could be paying. Some people are paying more than that on finance for a motor that does the same thing. It suits me for what I need it for. But I could go on this chase, and a lot of it's to do with impressing other people. See, if I was to get a higher spec motor right now, it would be only to impress other people. Simple as that. Other people are not going to cost me more money. Especially their validation, because see, these people that I'm trying to impress, they're no impressive people. Simple as that. And it goes to that Clays thing, right? People buying the clobber and getting seen this and that. See this t-shirt? My mum brought me this back from Turkey. I've got a cupboard full of designer looking stuff. It's all fake. I don't think I've got one designer item that's actually real. It looks the exact same and costs a fraction of the price. And I didn't even buy it. Could not care less. Me, happy. When you look at this lifestyle, right, of skullduggery, like punting is like a massive thing. And I've done it. Have I done it to a high level? No, certainly no. Did I do it well? I could have done it better, but Charlie he'd. So, what that life entails, right? Getting stuff out and tick, running about, people owing you money. Because the thing is, see if somebody owes you money in that lifestyle, you can't just rub it off. You gotta wipe it, you know what I mean? You look like a dafty. And then suddenly, if you've let him away with a bill, then he's going to bump you because he doesn't need to pay you because you're a dafty who'll do nothing about it. So suddenly you need to become this person. And the thing is, you don't usually tick, you never tick your enemies. Usually people you go on with. You always tick somebody you go on with or you trust them. It's always the people you trust that will let you down. Listen, I've been on both sides of it, right? So suddenly you're in a position like, I like this person, but they're fanning me about, they're not paying me. And listen, it could be 40 quid or whatever, or it could be a couple of 100 quid. You're like, right, do I let them away with it? And the person I owe money to, I'm having to come up short to them. And what if they think I'm messing them about? And suddenly I cop it because so-and-so doesn't want to pay me. So like, wait a minute, I'm not getting nipped for them. So suddenly then you're like, I don't know what, they're going to get it. And you're chasing people up, got to doors, doing all this stuff. Some people you never see again, they just bump you. The biggest drug dealers you know are owed money by somebody, they've been bumped. You know what I mean? And the higher level you go, the more serious the consequences are. The most serious the consequences you need to deal out to people. If you're seen to be owed 10, 20 grand in that, you need to act because you're in amongst the big boys, the players. And if you're looking like a dumpling that's getting bumped for 10, 20 grand here and there, you're not going to last. Suddenly you become this person you don't want to be. And listen, that's without even mentioning the police being on you. It's got an expiry date, the lifestyle. You can't even spend your money. You know what I mean? And then the coppers are on you. And it's only a matter of time before you get caught. And there's people who think they don't get caught. You'll get caught. Simple as that. It's just a matter of when. The police are too advanced in their technology these days. And grasses are everywhere. It's exactly the way it is, you know what I mean? Just nobody's going to tell you to their face they're a police informant or they've stuck you in. They'll deny it till they're blue in the face. Understandably so. That's just the way of that life. It's a dishonest lifestyle. It is what it is. Does that mean there's bad people in it? Aye, but there's some good people in it. Just because somebody's living that lifestyle or they're in that lifestyle doesn't make them a demon. Plenty of demons in it though. Skullduggery, man. And to be honest, when you look at some of these guys at the highest of levels that are going away for double figure sentences, and you're thinking, mate, I could go in the jail for a shoplifting and be next door to a guy who's a multi-millionaire, crime kingpin. The two of us have got the same canteen sheet. You know what I mean? The two of us get the same lunch menu, same dinner menu. We get gym at the same time. We go to the same gym. We're equals. You know what I mean? So, aye. I've got into that there, but listen, this is the kind of the reality of the situation. The thing is, just because I'm saying something in a certain way doesn't mean people are going to listen. That's fine. You've got free will to do whatever you want. I can only share my perspective and my experiences and what I know and what I've seen and what I understand as well. I may as well make myself useful. And that's a big thing I've learned in life, to learn where and how I can be useful. I'd say I've got a voice, quite a loud voice. I have got a voice. I've got a bit of a following, in case you haven't noticed. That I'm realising, right, I've got something quite powerful here. I'll tell you a story. When I done ayahuasca, right? So, if you're aware of ayahuasca, you're aware of the purge, and what the purge is essentially when you drink the ayahuasca within an hour, you essentially purge all the badness out of you, like all the stuff you've been eating, all the stuff you've been drinking, all the crap, you white it out. But what your body starts doing, your body kind of starts acting on its own accord. And I'd been kind of pre-warned of this, it'll kind of like convulse and stuff. Not in like a bad way as such, you just kind of let it roll. Kind of like being hypnotised. It's not as if I'm not in control here, but you feel your body moving a certain way. You ever been dancing and you're going with the rhythm? So what happened was with me, I was purging, I was going bleh, and then I felt I was like following the motions. I was picking up my bottle of water and I was tanning it, and I was like rinsing my mouth out and then spraying it into this bucket, and then I was grabbing like tissue and like I was scrubbing my tongue, and then I was going bleh, and all that, and as if I was emptying something. And what I took that to mean is, I'm going to go back to talking about having a voice. Previously, and to right now, right, I don't really take on the gravity of the fact that I've got quite a big following, right? People follow me for a manner of different reasons, right? But there's a percentage of people that listen to what I say. The fact that I've got a podcast platform with so many thousand subscribers and views or whatever, people hear the words that I'm saying. Some people take them on. They'll not tell me that. Some people do tell me, some people don't. But what I took that as a message is to stop talking shite. Be wary of your words and appreciate how far it can travel. I never really understood that, and when I done Terry Stone's podcast, that's an example of when I look at that now, I'm like, nah, that was me, but that wasn't my true self. It wasn't me being my true self. I would say I'm living a lot more authentically today. Try my best to. What I mean, it's an everyday battle. But if I could even give an insight into the person I was before, like years ago, and not even that long ago, if you asked me, like, who are you? Like, who are you? What do you stand for? I couldn't have told you. I would have tried to have found out what you stood for, what your opinions were, so I could agree with you. Because I was just constantly, I was trying to become a chameleon. I would just try and be something I wasn't. I would just try and, people would say, I would mimic people. Say somebody had this strong opinion and they voiced it quite well. I would mimic that, and then I would find myself in other people's company and I would like kind of repeat that, what they said and how they said it. It was almost like acting. I've been acting all my life. A lot of us have been. Like, I would be so desperate to get validated off other people, to be accepted. And that's because I was uncomfortable in my own skin, because I didn't accept myself. And sometimes the behaviours can still come out. You know what I mean? Because you're constantly, I'm constantly a work in progress. Like Terry Stone's podcast, that was an example of it, where I was being myself, but I was still flirting with that validation. Whereas now I'm kind of like, I couldn't really care less. You know what I'm talking about? I'll go back to the material stuff. Like, all the material things that I've bought lately have been me. Right, apart from like, maybe getting munchies and that, my missus and that type stuff, but I always need to try and keep a happy girlfriend. But I've never really bought anything to impress other people. I've never really been like that, but I've always just tried to portray it in my behaviour. And oftentimes social media's been a reflection of that. Some podcasts have been a reflection of that. It's a journey. Some people I've got on because they'll do reviews, or people might like game, and that still can come into it, but it has to be because I wanted it. It has to make sense. And that's the kind of decisions I'm making these days. For instance, I've been approached to do a boxing event, and I'll not go into too much details. It's somebody that's trying to kind of carry on for the previous TikTok boxing event. And I always did say, I'd love to do it again, but it needs to make sense. The price needs to be right, or it needs to be on a big platform. Because it's a big commitment, dedicating yourself to a boxing match, regardless of what level you're fighting at. And especially like being in like the social media spectrum, where you need to kind of sell tickets. You need to sell tickets in all kind of boxing events, but you need to promote it. You're essentially building the event. In September, I'm going to be starting a degree, which I'm ecstatic about. A degree in film production. I'm really looking forward to it. But I also need to manage my own business, because it's not a funded degree, it's a private university essentially. So I need to still make money. I'm not getting paid like a standard bursary. So, and plus being in a relationship itself, if you're not in a relationship now, I've been in one, it's a big commitment to you, which is great. I'm happy to commit because I go back to the ayahuasca thing, right? I done that and we were asked to go in with intentions. You wrote your intentions down on a bit of paper and then flung it in a fire. And you want to take that in, what will you try to improve or what did you want to bring into your life? And I wanted to get better in my relationships because my relational wealth was quite poor. And what I've found and what I will pass on is a bit of wisdom, you can take it or leave it. See, if you want something, right, be prepared to work for it, no matter what that is. If you pray to a God or whatever, if you don't believe in a God or whatever, if you want to bring something into your life, for instance, you want to become more patient, be willing to have your patience tested, right? You want to become more confident, prepare to feel fear. See what I'm getting at here? There's a pattern. Financially, you want more money, you're not going to wake up with an extra grand in your bank, not I'm talking about. Unless you're doing a bank scam, you dirty dog, you. But that's the point I'm trying to make. So, I asked to get better in my relationships, and I've had a lot of challenges in relationships. But I feel as if I'm at a point in my life, obviously I'm in recovery, and that gives you the toolkit to work through these things. And my relationships have never been better. Obviously, there's room for improvement, definitely. There's always room for improvement, and I do believe that. And also, I feel there's also a moment you can say to yourself, look, whatever created me, whatever you believe in, however I was created, I'll say, God, this was the best version that God intended me to be right now. You can say the same for yourself. But also, there's aspirations, there's places I want to grow, I'm still rough around the edges. And I accept that. And accept humanity is a big thing. Accepting that, accepting people for who they are, and not wanting everything to be perfect. You know what I mean? Because true perfection is imperfection, as the Bolden OG said, which I got to see Oasis in August. Life is good, man. Life is really good. Can't beat it. So, as I say, I've said my piece in regards to the podcast with Terry Stone. Flung in a wee bit of wisdom there. You know what I'm talking about? A massive thing. I don't even swear that much on camera anymore. You'll get the odd cunt, a wee fuck, a shit here or something. But I feel as if I'm managing to arrest that thought that wants to use a profanity as punctuation. It just flew off the tongue. Previously, I didn't even realise it. These days, I'm a bit more conscious to the words I'm putting out. But listen, actions speak louder than words. I mean, this is only subtitles. You need to watch the motion picture to see if it matches up. Which I'm willing to do, and I accept. But, hey ho, stay tuned in the channel, man. Keep your support up, and listen, if you get any feedback, man, chat. I'm not the best at replying, man, but I'll try. Still rough around the edges, not on top of it. But anyway, hope you have a blessed day, people. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. Like, subscribe, don't get wide. Catches!